Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Heather with the Institute of Child Nutrition, and I would like to welcome you to the September 2023 CACFP 101 webinar, Farm to Early Care and Education, Procuring Local Products. As a reminder, during today's webinar, all attendees will be muted. There will be time for questions at the end of the presentation. And if you have a question, please type it in the question box on your screen. We will try to get to as many questions as possible, but due to our time constraints, every question may not get answered during the webinar. After the webinar ends, a link to complete a short survey will appear. Please complete the evaluation survey. 24 hours after the webinar, individuals who have registered will receive a follow-up email. The email contains a recording link of this webinar available on iLearn, which is ICN's online learning platform, and a link to the evaluation survey in case you missed the pop-up link. ICN will send out webinar certificates of attendance within 24 hours. Due to the nature of this webinar, the slide deck will not be shared with our attendees today. This webinar will only be available in a video format. So the learning objectives today for this webinar is to recall strategies for procuring local fresh products in child nutrition programs. The views and opinions expressed in this webinar are solely those of the presenter and do not necessarily reflect the official policy or position of the Institute of Child Nutrition. So today we have Lakeisha Glaspie. She has worked in early care and education since 2008 in New Hanover County, North Carolina. She obtained a BS in public health from UNC Greensboro and earned the Child Care Health Consultant designation from UNC Gillen School of Global Public Health. She offers technical assistance, resources, and professional development opportunities to early educators to enhance health and safety practices. This includes garden education, outdoor learning, child nutrition, and so much more. Lakeisha promotes and implements the Farm to EC initiatives in her work with childcare facilities and community partners. So, without further ado, I'd like to welcome Lakeisha to our webinar today.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for having me with you today. It's such an honor. I hope everyone is doing well. I'll do my best to make sure everyone gets the most of our time today. Let me go ahead and share my screen with you. Perfect. All right, so let me tell you a little bit about myself. I am a child care health consultant, meaning that I work in child care facilities regarding their health and safety practices, focused mainly on children ages birth to 5. So this includes nutrition, physical activity, caring for children with special health care needs, and a lot more. So today we'll talk about nutrition specifically. As it pertains to farm to early care and education. I'm going to discuss work I've been a part of here in New Hanover County, North Carolina. We're a coastal community, so we're a beach town, close to the beach, but we're very small yet densely populated. Please keep in mind everything we touch on today can be tweaked and modified for your settings and your programs and fit various age groups. So I guess for my first poll, I want to get a sense of who we have with us today and get a sense of if you provide local foods currently. So we've got that first poll that launched there. I'll give you a couple minutes to take care of that. And remember, local foods could be anything from a farmer's market, grown in a community garden, all kinds of things. All right, a little more than half of our folks today already provide some, and the rest, I hope that you get some good information and resources if you decide that you want to continue to pursue thoughts of local foods in your programs. All right, so let's touch a little bit on what is Farm to ECE or early care and education for anyone who's unfamiliar. We're also going to talk about the impacts of Farm to ECE on our local community here and the local purchasing. And after that, we'll touch on some possible next steps and resources. So Farm to Early Care and Education has some core elements to it: gardens, education, and procurement. It connects local farms with local childcare sites to empower the development of community-based equitable food systems. To achieve that goal, we assist in connecting those resources and people across food systems and early education settings, and provide children with some hands-on experiential ways to engage with food. Not every childcare site has gardens. There are many ways to participate in Farm to ECE, even if it's just focusing on one of these three core elements. There's also a racial equity component to Farm to ECE. Representation matters for all children. When children think Old MacDonald has a farm, they may not automatically visualize someone who looks like me. So it's just as important that white children see that it is that's possible as it is for non-white children to see that that's possible. Equity is not just in regards to race and ethnicity, but also gender roles. It's just as important for little boys to see girls can be farmers as it is for girls to see that they can be farmers. So some people may ask why early care and education settings to do this work. Well, when it comes to health, teachers and caregivers model healthy behavior every day. Nutrition and physical activity are linked to so many things, not just physical health, but also the social emotional well being and behaviors. Giving children an early start on healthier habits leads to healthier outcomes as they get older. They're more likely to perform better in school, less likely to have chronic health issues. Another plus is that you're introducing these new foods earlier in life, and that can reduce food allergies. The family and community engagement piece. Uh, Connecting families about what their children are eating and talking about at home and at school is always really great. Making those community connections and partnering with agencies for donations or grant opportunities, maybe guest speakers, field trips, great engagement. The experiential education, that hands-on learning, whether it's through observations or experiments, is always a great way for children to learn. All of these things are happening in quality childcare every day all over the country. So that's why Farm to ECE is a great fit for childcare settings. So let's chat a little bit about activities and lessons in the classroom and how Farm to ECE supplements what you're already doing. So for art, painting rocks to mark where different plants can be going, using leaves to make paintbrushes, the math component, talking about how many weeks it's going to take to grow from a seed. There's sequencing that talks about the life cycle of a plant. Taste testing, pulling that produce from that plant and using it in meals or snacks. Trying produce that's similar to what you're growing or the different seasons that you have in your area of when things grow. That's a great way to teach children about seasons. You know, tomatoes grow in summer, kale grows better in winter. Just find out what crops are popular in your area during those different seasons. Pop-up markets, selling that excess produce to families uh, can help children learn more about money and raise funds to maintain the garden and produce and get that produce into the hands of families to continue that healthy eating at home. Sensory exploration, different colors and textures. Infants are great for learning how to smell and those textures with the different herb plants. They really like that sort of learning. So now we're going to talk about the impact of some of this local procurement here in our community. And some of the local procurement opportunities at some sites were actually quite simple. Ooh, sorry about that. They were actually quite simple. You can do a pop-up market, what I just touched on before, where the fruits and veggies that children grow in the garden can be used in that pop-up market. So children are given like special bucks so that they can shop for the produce with their families. Uh, it gives them a chance to talk about what they've been doing in the garden with their families and about how that's going, and provide that family engagement opportunity for the teachers as well as the families. Field trips to farmers market or even a community garden. I had one site who did a farmers market trip where children were sent to do the shopping for the center for the week with a grocery list. So they were able to sort and count and weigh produce. Now, what the children didn't know is that they were actually picking up the weekly order from the market. So everything had already been pre-ordered, but it was a great experience for them. Guest speakers, invite a farmer or someone from cooperative extension to do an activity or share some local produce. Another site was a large public pre-K here, and they had an agent from our cooperative extension do a series called Color Me Healthy. So this is a nutrition program that's geared specifically for preschoolers over about an 8 or 9 week period. And they do taste testing as part of the curriculum, so children get to taste those local foods. So keep in mind, anything that's grown and harvested from your gardens are reimbursable. Items that are donated from community gardens or other sources, those are also reimbursable for your food program. Hands-on tools or those hand tools that you use in the garden, you can purchase some that are child size. Those are also should be reimbursable as well. You can discuss all those things with your sponsoring agency. And next, I've got a little video that we will try to hopefully get going. Give me just a moment here. There we go. I may not be able to share that, Heather. I thought I had a way to share it really well, but it doesn't look like it wants to work for me.
No worries, Lakeisha. I've actually placed the video in the chat feature. So if anyone wants to look at that later, you can check it out there. So we can
Fantastic.
go on to your next poll.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. Technology has not always been kind to me, friends. So let's go to the next one. Hmm. Our next poll is, what are your challenges or barriers in providing local foods? So just to give me a sense of where you are with that. And I think that poll is going to be launched in just a second. Heather, is that poll being launched or not? You're on mute, I think, Heather.
Sorry. I can see the results on my screen. Are you able to see them on yours? If not, I can tell you what the results are.
Yes, I would love that. Thank you.
Okay, great. So it looks like 16% felt that a challenge was money. 25% felt that the challenge was time.
Okay.
44% felt that it was because they had limited options.
Mm.
And then 15% stated other was a barrier.
Okay. All righty. And how much was the percentage for money again?
16%.
Okay. So the majority felt like the barrier was the options.
Yes, limited options on providing local foods.
Gotcha. Fantastic. That gives us a place to start. I apologize. I feel like my slide has frozen up on me. Heather, I don't know if you have a way to pick up where I am leaving off. Are you seeing the New Hanover and the three circles in your screen there?
I'm seeing your poll question. What are your challenges or barriers? If you, I think it's the
Okay.
next one over. There, I can see that now. Yes.
Okay. Fantastic. Very good. Um, So let's talk a little bit about our community partners. Extensions, state cooperative extensions are usually affiliated with a state network of universities. Many of them have a Master Gardeners program and maybe even a Master Food program where they have cooking demos and nutrition classes. So these are great ways to connect with your local community and expand on some of those local procurement efforts. Resource and referral agencies or CCRNRs. That was who I was with when we is also a great way to reach out and get some technical assistance with implementing Farm to ECE. Local garden clubs, some opportunities, another great resource for you. Food councils, if you have a local food council in your area, the folks who get together to talk about food access in the area and different ways to get nutrition education to people in the community. That might be an avenue you want to try. And of course, your local health departments, registered dietitians, anyone who may be affiliated with those groups who might be able to help talk you through some things. I talked about CCRNRs earlier. Early childhood initiatives are often available in virtually every state. So I just did a random handful of states, so you may find your state here. But Head Start may have resources if there's no early childhood initiatives available for you. Most states, like I said, do have those resource and referral agencies. I strongly recommend that you reach out to a cooperative extension in order to get some more information. Even on that, it's usually, like I said, associated with a state university. You can always Google. I definitely use Google as an asset plenty of times, but you can Google to find extension offices that are in your area and find out if they have either a horticulture agent or a family and consumer sciences agent that can help you out. Um, any of those could be really helpful for you. So here's some resources to help get you started, no matter where you're located or where you are in the process. The USDA, your state's Department of Health and Human Services, your sponsoring agency, again, a great resource. There is a Farm to CACFP initiative that could also be helpful. And then there's also a tool that's a free online tool in many states called Go Knapsack. And Go Knapsack focuses on best practices in health for children ages birth to 5. And let's talk a little bit more about that in our next slide. So there are different modules in Go Knapsack on nutrition, breastfeeding, physical activity, screen time, and so much more. You might not see a Go Knapsack available in your site because it is available in 22 states. So if you're interested in getting Go Knapsack available in your state, it is still expanding. And there are opportunities for funding and for you to lobby to get it expanded to your state. But once it's available in your state, it is free to everyone. Um, my next slide here, I'm going to talk a little bit about some procurement options. So CSA boxes are agriculture. Boxes are often available through various farms. It's like a subscription service. You pay, say, a monthly fee, maybe a quarterly fee, and you're able to get a box of fresh produce. And you can use that box for taste testing, snacks, depending on the size of your program. Uh, a CSA box could be in a few of your classrooms. You may even want to freeze some of the items for later use in your menu planning. Food hubs. Food hubs allow you local farmers. Food hub is like a middleman. Farmers send their produce to the food hubs and customers produce from the hub. Another simple option, maybe just your local grocery store. Some stores highlight local produce, and you can make an effort to purchase items more often that way. Same principle works for food vendors. If you have a larger facility and you're getting orders, this maybe every week or so, you're placing orders with your vendor, you can ask your rep for help offering more local food to make those options known to you in your ordering system or on order forms. And mind you, local, the vary for some. It might be of where you are. It might be a little bit more regional or maybe statewide. So you can define local as needed for your area and what's going to work best. Some areas, a 50-mile radius is not very feasible. So there's some flexibility there. If you're just unsure about how to make a decision about how to provide those local foods, there is a little decision tree here, and this can be used to help assess your readiness to have more local foods in your program. You can assess your needs and your capacity for your program, your preferences. Remember, most childcare sites use a variety of options so that they can get more local foods. So please don't be discouraged if it takes time. Uh, Rome wasn't built in a day. Don't be intimidated by the process. Here are just some references that I've used and touched on today from CDC, the food program, Farm to Preschool Network. You may be familiar with Farm to School. There are a lot of initiatives very related to that. Like I said, the Farm to Preschool or Farm to ECE, the Farm to CACFP, all kinds of ways that you can make this work in your program. And I've got one last poll for you. What are some of your thoughts about Farm to ECE and what appeals to you? And Heather, if you'll be so kind to share with me some of those results, that would be great.
We're gonna take a little bit of time on this poll because it looks like we're still at about half of participating before we can give you some feedback on that. Is that okay, Lakeisha?
Absolutely.
All right. And while you guys are casting your poll, I put in some resource links that was featured on Lakeisha's PowerPoint in the chat box for you guys. Also, if you look at the resource icon on your toolbar, you can also find those links within that app feature. Looks like we're about 66% so far. Let's hear from just a few more before we tally up our results.
Thank you, Heather.
You're welcome. So it looks like 35% think that this is a great opportunity for children and teachers. 25% feel that it's a great family and community engagement opportunity. 21% feel that children of all ages, including adults, could benefit from this program. or I'm sorry, 11% think it's a great program, but they're just not sure where to start. And then 8% are not sure if this would work in their programs. So it looks like everyone's in agreement that it's a positive thing. So maybe we
Good.
need to talk about where they can start.
Fantastic. Well, I touched on state cooperative extensions before and resource and referral agencies. So those are my two big go-tos. If you are in a childcare program that already works closely with an early childhood initiative or a resource and referral agency, I strongly recommend you reach out to them again and let them know that you're interested in this work and see if they can either point you in the right direction or they may have some great resources themselves for that. And when I say a resource and referral agency, I realize it may be something different in different parts, but in North Carolina, we have a network called Smart Start. And I know that we help with technical assistance and training, anything from getting them ready for environment rating scales to helping them with their compliance with state licensing. So if you have someone like that that you've worked with, that you go to get some of your professional development, when it comes to ways to improve best practices in your class, the group that you would want to reach out to for something like this and have them kind of point you in the right direction. And I
That's a
think
great, sorry, go ahead, Lakeisha. I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, and I think we might be ready for your our Q&A section.
Absolutely. So, thanks for sharing all of that great information. We're going to take a few moments to answer some questions from our audience today. I do have two questions here. One is, how would you claim harvested items from your garden or
Okay.
from a garden?
Um, be go to and when you are doing your regular reimbursement every month, but there's a form called harvested or donated items. And you, and if you say harvested 10 tomatoes and you use those in your classrooms or you use that for a snack or a meal, that would be something that you would claim. It could be anything from the garden, it could be anything that may have been donated from a community garden, something like that. Maybe your Master Gardeners program at your local cooperative extension was able to come out and donate some fresh produce and do an activity with the children in the program. That would be a great way to add that to your claim form for reimbursement.
Another question that we have is from a provider in Florida, and she wanted to know if there were any grants or opportunities that would help pay for this type of program.
Yes. Okay. So that's actually something that varies a little bit state to state. My first thoughts would be to go to your local garden clubs or any kind of local grants um, organizations you might have. If you have a state cooperative extension that has a local, in North Carolina is counties. I know that some states call it something different. But if your county has a cooperative extension, they often have grants that they give out to the community for a certain focus. It can be education, for example. Well, having a garden on site on your playground is have some nutrition education for the children in your program and their families. So you can maybe write a grant or apply for a grant that way. Again, your resource and referral agencies, not only do they have grants, but they're able to do some of the footwork for you. In work in the past, I've been the one to do that. I had a childcare home who really wanted to do some gardening, didn't feel like she had a green to start. So Smart Start applied for the grant. And so I took care of all those logistic implementation kind of stuff. And that way the program got to do all the fun stuff. So I was able to facilitate that for her. So that would be my suggestion. Your resource and referral agencies to see if they can help do some footwork for you. Local garden clubs are a great resource, and cooperative extensions. Like I said, they often have grant opportunities for the community. And it could be that their grant needs to be linked with a resource and referral agency. So that's an opportunity for you.
Excellent. So it doesn't look like we're getting a lot of questions. Is there maybe a really fun story that you can share with some of the things that you've seen out in the field, or just a success story to kind of get our brains thinking about possibilities? And then if we don't have any more questions after that, we can close our webinar. But I'm curious to see what you see in the field. I think that farm to preschool is an amazing opportunity, and I know that a lot of people struggle with doing it right. So I would love to hear some really good success stories.
There's been a few, thankfully, I'm very glad to say. One was a family childcare home that had a garden, and family childcare homes here typically have 5 or 6, no more than 8 children. But we're talking about a few preschoolers, and they were doing their gardening thing and that sort. And it was just part of the every routine. Well, one of the kids went to our local arboretum here in town with their parent over the weekend and was going through the grounds and looking at the gardens and had seen something. I don't remember if I can't remember, bok choy maybe. And so when the little boy said that, oh, this is bok choy, I've eaten that, and the parent was just like, what? How do you even know what that is? And so the kid very innocently said, Miss Angie taught me. And it was just a great way and just a small way for that parent to really have that little bird's eye view into something that child had done. Because a lot of times parents don't realize that children will eat certain things. They just think that because they don't like it, their child doesn't like it. But that's not always the case. And sometimes you have to try something over and over again. Um, One other story that makes me think of is a child that was just not having it with, it may have been broccoli, definitely something green. I'm not positive. Um, but it's an exposure every time that vegetable is on their plate. And so one day, it was like, I'll smell it. Like, okay, that's great. Don't have to eat it if you don't want it, but it is available to you. So one day they smelled it. Another day they would touch it, and then they would kind of lick it. And so one day they finally took a small bite and realized, oh, well, this isn't so bad. And so it was very just rewarding and uplifting when it's like, yes, finally. Um, Not just that the child tried it, but that tried it and actually felt like, oh, okay, this isn't as bad as I thought it was going to be. Um, so it was a learning experience for everyone. Oftentimes you have to try a specific food maybe 30 or more times before a child is ready to try that or actively eat that. It's not uncommon. Sometimes it's just the way it was cooked. Um, Maybe the seasonings that was used. It could be a lot of different things, and that's okay.
Thank you for sharing those stories. Those are awesome. I love hearing that stuff. Well, thank you guys again for joining us today. This concludes our webinar. Again, you'll get your certificates within 24 hours. Thanks again for joining us. We really appreciate it. I hope that you guys have a great day.